Alright, so it's time to finally address something that I've been meaning to talk about. I don't talk about politics a lot, but this year has definitely got me more invested with the looming threat of Donald Trump's presidency again and Project 2025. But this year has also had a lot of shakeups. So let me explain my situation why I'm making this video. When Biden dropped out of the race, it came as a shock. I was at work that day, and I kept telling myself, if Biden drops out, all these people want him to drop out. I never thought it would happen. Because the reality is, it felt like it was too late for him to drop out. Like, if he was going to do it, he should have done it a while ago. And, like, the chances of that happening are really stupid. I still thought he could win against Trump. I didn't feel like it was as hopeless as people made it out to be, right? But, it kept going. It kept going. And enough people in the Democratic Party finally were just like, all right, Joe Biden stepped down. And I think when he stepped down, I was at work, and I thought this was the dumbest fucking decision because we know that he endorsed Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris, I don't have any problem with her in particular, other than she's been, I wouldn't say a weak vice president, but I mean, we've had worse vice presidents like Mike Pence, right? When you had to literally question whether he would follow the whims of Donald Trump and not certify the election that he did not win, Trump that is. When you had to question whether he'd actually do his fucking job, things like that. We've had our worst vice presidents, but she's not been particularly the most interesting one. Up until this point, I didn't really know much about her. But when I was just thinking about Kamala Harris, I just was like, okay, we're talking about 5 months out, or like 5-6 months, whatever. People have to get familiar with this new candidate before the election happens, and because let's be real. Before Kamala Harris announced she was running for president, the most people knew about her is that her name sounds weird and they didn't know how to fucking say it. And that's mostly because a bunch of racists kept pronouncing her name incorrectly, purposely. Like, you can't tell me all those Fox News hosts and all those Newsmax hosts and all those Republican media people mispronounce her name wrong on accent. There's definitely foreign names that are hard to pronounce, but that's a thing. So when she dropped out, I was like, oh shit, we're doomed. Because basically, it's not that she was a bad candidate or anything. It's more the fact that because she had dropped out, it meant that all the Republican propaganda of Joe Biden being told to be too old became real. Even though it's really not. Joe Biden has passed a bunch of legislation, which is more than you can say for the actual Trump administration. And if you believe Joe Biden's too old, let me point to the fact that Donald Trump is 78 years old. Joe Biden's 81 years old. There is not much contrast between these people, so shut the fuck up about the old person debate, right? And so, it just felt really irritating. But I thought, wow, all the Republican propaganda became real. And to my shock, Republicans really haven't used that. I mean, there's been talks about maybe 25th Amendment his ass, removing him from office. But the reality is that isn't going to go through because they're too cowardly to actually fucking do it. And if they do it, it will literally be like September, like 2 months before the fucking election happens. So it's not gonna happen. But I think when Kamala dropped off, or Joe Biden dropped out, it just made me feel not optimistic for the first time. Most people felt that way after the debate. And to me, I didn't feel that way after the debate. My thing about the debate was who gives a shit? Both people look bad on that stage. But I think what I realized after that shit went down and I actually started paying attention to what was happening, I just realized this is all fucking stupid. Right? Where Kamala actually is excited people about the race. And I think it's pretty obvious why. It's not even so much she's a great candidate. There's, better people I want running, right? It's the fact that really before Kamala dropped out, we had two fucking old people who we had both had in presidency for 4 years. Joe Biden is doing his 4 years right now. It's going to end in November, right? Or I guess beginning of next year, right? Trump, we had him for 4 years. So we know these candidates in and out. That's why, as much as the debate seemed like such a bad thing, I didn't really see it as that big of a deal because it had very low viewership. Why? Because people already know. They know who Joe Biden is. They know who Trump is. And if you don't know who they are, then you're a fucking idiot who shouldn't be voting. Because you're clearly not tuned into politics enough to actually know what the fuck is going on and make a correct decision. Which means that you're probably a Trump supporter, right? Someone who doesn't pay attention to the news and it doesn't actually follow what the shit's going on, right? I'm just saying, that's just the reality. And even the RNC had very low viewership numbers. And then Kamala becomes the nominee, and all of a sudden people are excited again about this race. I've seen people optimistic about the future. And then I watched part of the DNC recently, and while it's still going on, right? But when you watch that DNC, what you see is the contrast between these two parties. You see the not just excitement, but the people actually there who stand up on that stage, they're talking to the audience, and they're talking about legislation, things that they can pass, hope, optimism, prosperity, talking about their future, ways to improve this country. Where if you go and watch the RNC, it's just Trump rambling about fucking nonsense, and then about crying about trans people and wokeness and all this stuff, and fear-mongering about shit that isn't real. And I think that's the contrast of why people are excited about this race again. They're finally being filled with hope and optimism when politics, for the past 8 years now, through the whole Trump presidency and Joe Biden's presidency, because while Joe Biden did do a lot of good things during his presidency, the main problem was that people were suffering economically. And that's not like Joe Biden's fault that you're suffering economically, in the sense that Joe Biden was picking up the pieces of how poorly Trump handled COVID, many other problems going on, like this, this worldwide inflation, corporate price gouging, things like this that happened and started under Donald Trump and only got worse because that's just the way things ended up, and it just fucking sucks, and he was cleaning up the pieces, right? And so, the past 8 years have been really shitty because of all these factors, the Trump presidency, the pandemic, inflation, all this stuff. And now people are being told that there might actually be a future and hope and push for the future. This is basically the way people felt when Herbert Hoover left office, right? Where they were getting ready, where their next president took reins of the ship and basically filled people with hope and optimism and actually worked to rebuild this country. And, in some ways it wasn't perfect, but overall it was for the betterment of this country. And that's what Kamala and these people will do. I don't think this is a easy place to go, all right, but once we get this election through, we're good. No, I mean, there's still more work to be done, right? Kamala and all these people will do their thing, but the main problem we're going to realize is that even though I think after this election, if Donald Trump does not win, Project 2025 does not go away. Trump goes away, but Project 2025 does not. The Republican Party will rewrite it, add this stuff in, work to undo other things. They will find other tricks and avenues to get this shit done. They will find a way to get a Republican in office. legally or illegally, what by any means necessary. They will try, right? And so that's one thing you need to pay attention to. But I think overall, if you truly pay attention to what's happening in this country, right now we are being filled with hope and optimism towards a future of rebuild, not tear down. And that's the thing. Kamala's message recently is we're not going back. And I think all their fear-mongering bullshit is a great example of what we're not going back to. We are not going back to that time of fear and anger and hatred. We are going to work towards a future of optimism, of hope in this country. And that's what I want to see in this country currently. And I think people need to shut the fuck up when it comes to Democrats and Republicans are all the same. Because I'm sorry, when you watch the RNC and you watch the DNC recently, they're not the same. Yeah, in some ways they are the same. They have politicians, they're all crooked, right? Yada, yada, yada. Heard it all before. But there's something deeper going on here, and I think it's worth examining and paying attention to. And I think this election will not only be one of the most consequential of our lives, maybe the most optimistic in a very, very long time. And that's why I made this video. I want to remind people that you don't have to be sitting there freaking out in pain every day. There is hope. You still should get out there and vote. I'm not telling you this to tell you to make you feel so good that you don't even feel like you need to vote, because that is the way some people feel sometimes. But no, you should still get out and vote in November and vote for the betterment of democracy